Let's talk about this and, of course, all the block deals which are happening non-stop as well. Neha Agarwal is MD and Head of Equity Capital Markets at JM Financial Institutional Securities, and she's with us to take some questions. Neha, good morning. Good to have you with us here. Thank you for your time. So demand is there, and, of course, supply is rising to match it. Just a quick word on Hyundai first, if you will. $3 billion, whenever you have a large issue comes and markets have already done very well, people use historical sort of, stories about large IPOs and how they've kind of acted as a bit of a issue for the market. How would you look at it? So the basic question is, will this kind of supply overwhelm demand, or you think the market will just sort of deal with it and move on? What's your sense?
I think, Prashant, every supply of paper in the Indian markets is making its own demand. I would look at it in a very different lens. I think what we're witnessing right now in India is unprecedented era of economic development. Just look at the macroeconomic stability, the pro-business policies which are coming through. All the FI inflow mind share which India is attracting is one of the highest. So it really, every paper, whether it's IPOs, QIPs, blocks, are making massive demand history. Look at Bajaj Housing, right? It made history in the kind of demand it got through. Markets are stable. It's doing extremely well. Similarly, I think Hyundai also will not be an aberration to the market. You're going to see huge reception both from the FII and the domestic community for these transactions.
It gets absorbed and we move right back on, right? Or you think it could, I'm talking about the next, say, 2-3 months or so. You got many others, like Vari is coming. There is the NTPC green issue, which is coming. Of course, the two that I already mentioned. Do you think the ask price will be secondary markets consolidated a little bit, or you think, what's your sense there? Yeah.
I'll give you two data stats, right? If you see first half of financial year 25, we've already clocked in about $8 billion of IPO and about $7 to $8 billion of QIP, which is in a way akin to primary capital raise, right? Because all of that money is going into the balance sheets of companies which are looking for growth. So $15 billion of equity inflows, equity of supply of paper has come through in first half. And the way we're seeing pipeline is another $20 billion of IPOs and another $10 to $15 billion of QIPs in the offering for the next 6 to 9 months. And if you ask me, the most intuitive question will be, is there enough demand for these kind of papers? And my answer would be yes. Because as long as it's sustainable business models, as long as the cash flows are strong, great management team out there, investors have been extremely receptive.
Neha, just one question. So take all that, right? Let's just talk about the IPO. IPO funds which are being raised. Have you looked at how much of the money which is being raised is going into the company? How much of it is growth capital? How much of it is investors getting an exit?
Yeah, so the first half of this financial year, it was actually 50% of primary and 50% secondary. But what I'm seeing in all the latest offerings that we're doing, I wouldn't be wrong in saying a very high delta towards movement towards primary capital, which is growth money actually going into the company, which could be in mirroring a deleverage to growth strategy. A lot of deleverage is happening, is a lot of growth capital expenditure which is coming through. Half would be at least 60 to 65% of primary raise, which is growth capital through IPOs.
Okay, got that. So
Prashant, I don't think we should forget QIPs because QIPs is all about primary raise, right? And actually, first half, we saw more QIPs in Indian markets than IPOs. And I think that trend will continue. Because a lot of capital expenditure comes through QIP. Sorry, Prashant.
So from here to the end of the financial year, what's the pipeline according to you looking like? IPOs and QIPs?
Would be about $30 billion at least.
20, so, both put together? 30.
Yeah, so at least 15 to 20 of IPOs and another 10 to 15 of QIPs.
Okay, this is till March 25, right?
March 25, yeah. We've already done about 15 in the first half and another 25, 30 to go.
Wow, it's going to be a big year. What's the, when you speak with the investors and pitch it to investors, etc., all these issuances, where is maximum interest? Is it everywhere? Are there any sort of hot areas? In the US, for example, the big overriding theme is AI. Are there any themes here? The thing about India, of course, is there is so much, right? So many sectors, so many new emerging sectors, old, new, everything. But are there any preferences investor-wise?
Before I get into the sector thematics, I think one thing which is driving a lot of cornerstone conversations is the big E, which is your earnings. 2 years back, we were seeing a lot of price to sales, IPOs getting valued off revenue. But I think pragmatism has come through. There's been constructive conversations around earnings, and now it's more about EV, EBITDA, and price to earnings. So a lot of businesses which emulate earnings trajectory, where there's unit profitability, there's cash flows. Investors are getting a much higher mind share into that. Coming to sectors, I would think renewables is one sector apart which is getting a lot of interest. You will see more than $4 to $5 billion of fundraise in this sector. It could be via IPOs or QIPs, because one thing is that the IRR metric of this sector is phenomenal now. So investors are far more receptive to understand this sector. There's great interest from foreign institutional investors also. So renewables is one space. The other one would be overall manufacturing. I think that will be the key theme, even overriding this sector. It could be in the form of precision equipments, autocoms. We did a couple of QIPs last week, which was in the autocom space. Phenomenal response. I think the trend will continue for these two sectors as we speak.
All right, Neha, we'll leave it there. Great conversation and great insights. Thank you very much for joining us here on CNBC this morning, and look forward to our next one soon. Well, we'll take a quick commercial break here.